This is World of Info, and we are coming from Studio 3. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk. Dua Muhammad is at the control, and today in the World of Info, it is the world of books. And yes, in the world of books, we are presenting today two very interesting books. The Last Kings of Hollywood by Paul Fisher, and the second book is From Mistakes to Meaning by Michael Linton and Joshua Steiner. Stay tuned to us, and after the break, we'll start reviewing these books. And yes, we are back with the first book of today, The Last Kings of Hollywood, a book that has been written by Paul Fisher and has been in the market since this year, 2026. And this is really a very interesting book because it is telling us the stories behind the scenes of three of the most important directors of the modern cinema of the United States, or the Hollywood cinema. Yes, The Last Kings of Hollywood, and it is speaking about a generation of directors who have led the revolution of the most gross production of money and great amount of income that has been taken up by the film industry because of their films. So this is one of the three of the most or the greatest directors. And by this we mean, of course, Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas and, of course, Steven Spielberg. And of course, the writer has also given us an idea about another famous artist and a very famous director, and that is Martin Scorsese. So when we talk about these directors or the new kings of Hollywood, we have to talk about three things. The first thing is that this has been they were born, the oldest of them was born, that is Francis Ford Coppola, in the year 1939. And the other three have been born in the 40s. So when we talk about these people, we have to mention that how much they have started to know the world in the 50s of the 20th century. Before that, the modern cinema industry has reached its peak with the gross income taken up by the famous studios and the famous companies until 1947, where these companies were continuously making gross and huge income, even during World War II, where everything was in recession, but yet the film industry went on with making movies about the war and making a lot of great influence, where the owners of the studios and the companies were producing this important gush of money. Now we'll talk about this generation, or they call them sometimes the baby boomers, because they were regularly born after 1945. But especially the eldest of them, and that is Francis Ford Coppola, was born in 1939, so we can put him in this generation. The writer has talked about Francis Coppola by being one of the greatest directors of all time. He has under his belt great successes, and he is considered to be one of the only directors who have won 5 Oscars and the Palme d'Or, that is of the Cannes Festival, and a lot of appreciation for all his work that he has done. He's a genius, he's a director, he's a script writer, and he is coming from Italian origin. His father was a conductor and a flutist in one of the orchestras, and later on became a conductor. He didn't reach the fame to become a conductor of a famous orchestra, but he was a talented artist. And the Coppola family has had generations of actors, and like the daughter of Francis Coppola, Sofia, and of course his nephew Nicolas Cage, and a lot of artists, and also his son who's working as a script writer. So looking at that and knowing that Francis Ford Coppola was an extreme talent that started from the very young age. Even during his college year and his university years, he was into cinema and he was into direction, and he is very much interested in details. And his talent does not just go into direction or director of photography, but producing the film and even script writing and writing the script. So one of his first Oscars was about script writing in the famous film of Baton. And it's also said that one of his important speeches that was made in the first scene of Baton, when he has written the script, which is delineating the general himself giving an imaginary speech to the Third Army that he led in World War II, just a few months before he died. And this speech was very strong words. And the producers of the film said, no, we're not going to put this script, and we're going to omit this script. But George Scott, the actor or the main character of representing Baton, he said, I will work on this film on one condition, is that this script of Francis Coppola will be put in the narration. And by the way, his name is Francis Ford Coppola, and Ford is not a name of the family, but because he was born in a hospital in Detroit that is a maternity hospital built by Ford, and it's called the Henry Ford Hospital. So his father has given the name, the middle name of him as Ford, because he was born in this hospital. Francis Coppola met George Lucas, who was an intern who won one prizes, and he met him in the Fenian Rainbow movie set when George Lucas was a bystander, if I may use the expression, because he has won a small scholarship that he can visit the studios, and he has seen this studio and went and introduced himself to Francis Coppola, who was just maybe 5 or 6 years older than him. So it has a stricken sort of a relation of friendship that is lasting up till now. Francis Coppola was always would like to listen to some people if they give him ideas or whatever, but his decision making is from his own mind. They became friends, and he asked him to be one of his assistants in some of the films that he was originally making. Now, when we look at Coppola, with his another lucky strike was with making the movie and the very famous movie of Godfather, first part and the second part, which both led him to receive 2 Oscars. And this made the film one of the most prestigious film. And even when he made the Godfather Part 3 in 1990, also it has received a lot of credit. When we talk about this film in particular, when he has decided to take Marlon Brando as the main character of the Godfather himself, Don Corleone, and how Marlon Brando was able to reach the peak of his career under the direction of Coppola. So Coppola did a very good job with this movie, and gaining this important trophy has helped him to fulfill one of his dreams. Actually, it was a dream of George Lucas to make a film about Vietnam. But Francis Coppola decided to make this film, and George Lucas told him that I will not be able to join this movie because I'm busy doing my own films. So Francis Coppola went and made the film Apocalypse Now. And Apocalypse Now is one of the very famous films that has talked about Vietnam. And he was so conceited that he said, my film is not about Vietnam, my film is Vietnam itself. The film has taken extensive long time in producing and extensive over budget amount of money, but it has shown 2 very important actors in the peak of their career, and that was Marlon Brando. He said, I would take $1 million per day for any working day, and therefore his role has been done in shortened and made concentrated. And the second role is the role of Martin Sheen. And Martin Sheen, during this period of time, was passing into a great psychological disturbance time, and he even had an injury and had a presumable heart attack. And this was a turning point in his career when he started to sober up after this film. So after the break, we'll talk more about Francis Ford Coppola. So you're still listening to the World of Info and the World of Books, and we are talking about The Last Kings of Hollywood by Paul Fisher, and we were just talking about Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Coppola made a huge amount of money from the films that he has produced in the 70s, and of course we're talking about Godfather Part 1 and Part 2. And he had the dream that he will build himself an independent studio away from the studios of Hollywood. And this first the first trial was in the early 70s, and he was bankrupt and he stopped this dream. And then later on in the 1980s, with all the acclimatization and the acclimation and the great success he made, he invested huge amount of money to build himself a big company or a big studio. And unfortunately, in this time, he faced a huge money problem and producing this film that he was making, which has failed in the movies. And this film just brought up, after spending about $30 million, he just brought $600,000, and he was completely bankrupt. And in the period of the 80s, he had to settle all his money that he was credited, which he approached $40 or $50 million, and he had to settle in for directing low budget movies, although these movies proved to be at least technically successful, and at least has shown the brightness and the greatness of Francis Coppola. In the 80s, he produced a lot of these films, and it was not before the end of this decade that he was able to settle the amount of money he has borrowed, and was able to settle his material things. And he has seen a great catastrophe that his elder son unfortunately died in a boat accident, and that has really affected him very much. So when we talk about Francis Coppola, we'll talk about how he has done a great job in the American movies, and how his movies are still living, and considered a huge number of his movies are maybe 10 movies of his are in the 100 great movies of the American cinema. So his work and his personal suffering, and at the same time his incapability of maintaining the amount of material or money success he made from the Godfather movies really paid up in the end by having himself succeed in the end to secure more stable money status. And this brings us to the great friendship that has been made between George Lucas and Francis Coppola. George Lucas was a big fan of Francis Coppola, and he went on in building his career and walking in the footsteps of Francis Coppola, and at the same time having a great important amount of interest in what he was doing. And he started doing his own movies, and the famous success that happened with George Lucas was with Indiana Jones, the first part and the second part. And in Indiana Jones, he was helped by Steven Spielberg in directing the movie, and this we can see the great success of Indiana Jones and his great choice of Harrison Ford. Also, the trilogy of Star Wars, and going in after Star Wars, and he's been able to invest a lot of money coming from Star Wars, taking a good deal of the income, and at the same time he's able to be a partner as well in the memorabilia that was sold, all the days, and the t-shirts and all this stuff of Star Wars have led him to reach a great status. However, with his great fortune that he has acquired, and the huge amount of money that he's having, also we have to articulate that he has a great philanthropist activities. He has taken his share in supporting art museums and libraries all over the United States, of school libraries, and supplying them with books. And of course, this is a very important step in his life, that this philanthropy has made him having a great success in the field of movies, and at the same time maintaining the huge fortune that he has gathered through the time. He had a big fight with his dear friend Francis Coppola, but of course, with the times in the 80s of the death of the elder son of Francis Coppola, they became more again as good friends, and still up till now they have and maintain this strong friendship that keeps them together, attached, and this is really very interesting. So after the break, we'll talk further about the third of the most famous actors, and that is of course Steven Spielberg. So you're still listening to the World of Info, and we're talking about the book, which is an interesting book. It's called The Last Kings of Hollywood by Paul Fisher. And he is making the third and most important director, and that is Steven Spielberg, who is a member of the EGOT, that is the Academy Awards and of course the Tony Awards and all these awards. He's one of the very few directors who has received 3 Oscars of his movies. And he has made a huge sum of movies. That is, so of course, we know The Jaws, The Close Encounter, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Schindler's List. All these movies are blockbusters, as they can use the expression. And his films have really affected the world of movies, and he's been well known for his movies and his production. He's maintaining one of the hugest fortunes, maybe about $5.3 billion of money from his gains from the movies and the cinemas that he has done. His intelligence, and of course in using these movies, and his sharing with George Lucas in the Indiana Jones series, makes him one of the most famous movies directors in the world up till now. And he always have mentioned that definitely it's the technology will be upgraded more and more. And he has been, since he was quite young, interested in all the tricks of the movies, and therefore with all these technicalities and the production of more movies to go, he has gained his reputation and fame for producing very important and popular movies. The fourth character that Paul Fisher have written in this book was about Martin Scorsese. And Martin Scorsese is a very talented director. He was also from the same generation. He was born in 1942. And he is of Italian origins. And he was very famous for doing the real black movies. For me, it was not the black as the black color, but the black as the dark side of New York. His famous film of Taxi Driver in the early 70s, and New York, and the Goodfellas, and the Casino, all this going on, and the Aviator, all these movies were movies that carried some bittersweet taste in it. And his success in directing these movies, and his share in writing their scripts, and his emotional involvement with every film. And it is well known that Martin Scorsese had got involved in the right path of addiction of drugs, and even his body failed him, and entered into a hospital with overdose. And when he woke up, he found by his side the famous actor Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro has been the main role character of 10 of his movies. And it is well known that Robert De Niro is the one who helped him to sober up, and told him that he should sober up. He doesn't need to die, and he has children to keep and a girl to raise. And this is very interesting about Martin Scorsese. He listened very well to the to what Robert De Niro has said to him. And he went on living in a great comeback with more movies in the 80s and the 90s, and even very lately in 2019 he has produced the famous film The Irishman. So when we talk about Martin Scorsese, we have to talk about him as one of the great directors of the American movies and of Hollywood, and definitely we have to give him the tribute of being such a great success in elaborating his movies and making his movies talk to the conscious and the touch or brainstorming of the audience of his movies. Martin Scorsese, a great movie director. So I think this can give us a sort of a peek on the world of the Last Kings of Hollywood by Paul Fisher, a book that deserves to be read. It has been freshly written in 2026, this year, released in January, and I think it's a bestseller now and deserves to be read because the writer has consumed a lot of time in making interviews with first-hand information coming from the friends and the families and the children and the acquaintance of these famous directors. And if you need to know a backstage about the Hollywood movie industry and the Last Kings of Hollywood, you have to read this book. So stay tuned to us. We'll go after the break. We'll have another book that deserves to be read as well. So you're still listening to the World of Info, and today is the World of Books. My name is Dr. Amr MABROuk, and Dua Muhammad is still at the control. And yes, the second book is quite an interesting book. It is called From Mistakes to Meaning. And the writers are two writers, Michael Linton and Joshua Steiner. And the book is talking about a certain thing. What is actually going in your mind about how can you define your gravest mistake, your biggest mistake, the mistake that you have done and really you regret it, and you think that every day passes by, this mistake is getting bigger, even if you have survived this mistake, even if you are living now a normal life, even if you mended your life after this grave mistake, still this mistake hangs around you, and still you are always thinking of it and pretending that this mistake has taken up your life and your time. So what made these two writers get together? Because they're friends. And what made them write this topic? Because both of them have committed a big mistake in their lives. And let's talk about Michael Linton, the first author. And Michael Linton was the chairman, the chief executive officer of Sony Entertainment, a man with a great experience and a great knowledge of administration. And he is a very important figure in the media production. And yes, he has a lot of studios under his name and under his control, and he was appointed as a chairman or chief executive officer of Sony Entertainment, with all the stuff that it has, beside being, for example, the PlayStation and the movies and everything is under his control. And whenever they are making a movie production, the directors, the script writers, the people who are in the administration of this movie will have to sit down with Michael Linton to agree whether this film should be produced or not, and how much will this film be gaining or not. And he, as a chairman, has to be totally unemotional when he sits down to discuss what is with and what's against this movie. He has to be really like a judge, regulating without any emotions and without getting absorbed into details. So he's talking about a very important incident that happened in his life in 2015. The script writers and the directors and the movie production people came to him and asked him, "We want to produce this movie." And they talked about a movie about the famous North Korean dictator, and it's called The Interview. And this movie will be a sort of a big sarcasm of the dictator himself, and making a sort of a fictional trial of assassination or whatever. So he became very much absorbed with the idea. He liked the idea. He thought that this is a very good step to let's do it. Yes, and he signed. Once he signed, the media started saying that Sony Productions is going to make a beautiful movie, and it's going to be a great embarrassment, of course, to the North Korean dictator. And suddenly, Pandora's box was open, and the North Korean government, or they say, maybe nobody knows what happened, has been able to hack all the Sony computers and to take from it all the possible documents in Sony, and then put it on the WikiLeaks, so that suddenly Sony is completely exposed. The opinions of the directors in the movie stars, the secret information about the lives and times of the employees, even their health insurance, every single thing about them, all their emails have been hacked. Everything that is top secret and secured was hacked, and suddenly Sony company has been shaken up. And it's telling the story that President Obama, as a president at that time, once he met this Michael Linton once later on, and he told him, "What were you thinking of when you signed this movie to be produced?" So the damage control was that the technology people will have to work and things will be mended. And of course, Michael Linton in 1 year time, or less than 1 year, lost his job. So this is the very interesting point about the book, about the mistake. It's a mistake that he has lived in. Yes, he was able to get over it. He was able to live the time and to survive. But he's scarred, and it was a big scar. And what are the lessons to be learned? The second author, that is Joshua Stinner, is another important, influential lobbyist and a politician, and working in politics. And in early 1994, he was working in the Clinton administration in the Treasury Department. At that time, there was the Whitewater scandal, which was involving one of the associates of Clinton, and at the same time, the Monica Lewinsky incident. So at this very critical time, he was writing his own memoirs on a diary. And he was keeping this diary at his home. So once this scandal erupted and was open on the places, they said that all the employees, especially in high-ranking employees, or the employees who have a security clearance like him, even though he was young at that time, will be investigated. So he thought that since he will be investigated, that these FBI people might come and pay him a visit and start searching in his papers. So they will open his diary and will find what he has written in. He was not a first source information, but he was hearing a lot of rumors about Monica and about the Whitewater. So he was writing these rumors, which were not based on scientific basis or on eyewitness story. So suddenly, he decided that he will give up this diary and present it to the FBI, and of course, this led to a lot of embarrassment to the administration he worked in. Was his decision right or wrong? Was he right in writing the diary? Was he right in giving this diary up to the people of the investigations? Anyway, he paid the price heavily, but later on he was resurrected and found a new job, and he's now doing well. So later on, after the COVID time, they met, both of them, and decided that they say, we have never talked about this catastrophe in our lives. So why don't we sit down, in spite of the fact that we are very good friends, we never shared our feelings about that. We never admitted our mistakes. So what should we do? So they, after admitting both of them to each other and relieving themselves from the pressure of what they have done, they have decided to write this book and to talk about other experiences of people using the information gained by personal interviews with some people that we're going to discuss here in the book, or also with some of the psychologists who shared with them that these feelings have to be translated and transferred so that the person will not always have this guilt feeling. So let us see in the pages of the book what was coming after that. So you still will come back to you after the break. So you're still listening to the World of Info, and today in the World of Books we are talking about the book From Mistakes to Meaning by Michael Linton and Joshua Steiner. So they decided that they are going to write about people with first-hand information and first interviews with them. So, for example, one of the very famous people who spoke in TED Talk, and he would always go and be able very much to reach the audience and indulge with them in self-help and all this stuff. One day he was presenting a talk, and he felt that one of the biggest mistakes he done was that one of the attendees was very busy writing in his telephone and not looking to him, and he was sitting in the first row. So instead of taking his eyes from him and talking to other people or addressing other people, he found himself looking to him in the eyes and said, "Why aren't you listening to me, and why you are not understanding me, and you're putting your headphones as if you are listening to music?" Then the guy told him that this is an hearing aid that helps me to write because I have a problem in writing and a problem in listening, and that's why this hearing aid will help me to write. And this was a great embarrassment to him. So he considered this to be one of his biggest mistakes. Another lady who was a very famous scientist and was involved in a very huge company has received a very prestigious job in the company and was ordered to choose somebody to help her to be the general manager of the company. And she has made the wrong choice. And instead of getting rid of this general manager, she had to submit to him and take from him all his negative attitude. And she felt that this is one of her gravest mistakes. She couldn't overdo this thing except when she laid him off. The famous director David Frankel has, after being success with The Devil Wears Prada and all these movies, was offered to make movies in this direction. But he has chosen to make a movie called The Big Year, which is talking about bird watching. And this he insisted on doing, and the company agreed that he will do this movie, and the movie was a failure. So he was considered that this was a big problem. Instead of going for the right and the best choice, he has chosen a wrong thing. So when you make a bad career mistake because you don't understand your environment or because you're overconfident, that's things. The book goes on and talking about, for example, Gotti, who was a very famous singer in the early 21st century, who had an association with the famous singer Jennifer Lopez, and they made 2 or 3 very famous songs and albums, and it was a great success. And he has seen Jennifer Lopez as a great and beautiful friend. One day he received a phone call from a journalist, and he was not in a good mood. And the journalist said to him, Jennifer Lopez is saying that you're a good friend and that you are going to tell me more about your relation. And he was coming from a very bad mood. And she said that she's the one who's giving you ideas. So he suddenly started insulting Jennifer Lopez and saying, no, she doesn't give me ideas, and of course this ruined their friendship, and they ruined this partnership. And up till the last moment of his life, he was regretting the moment that he has made this wrong mistake of telling somebody who he really loves a bad thing. So we can go on forever talking about the big mistakes, and you can play the same game. What was your biggest mistake that you have done in your life that definitely has caused you to face this trouble, and think of yourself that you are passing into a great problem. And he's saying, or both of the writers saying, that we should do ourselves a good assessment. And this assessment is by, for example, the word "do it." Duet is D-U-E-T, it's do it, is disclose, unpack all the negative images that you have about this bad experience, and emphasize what you think of it, and trust somebody who you really like or love, a friend or your wife or your partner, that you would go on and tell them about the problem and get it out of your chest. This is a point about how you feel towards your mistake. But the second important point is how to feel about how to deal and how to stop yourself from committing a mistake. On analysis of the mistakes that they have both done, the both writers. First of all, he said, I should have stayed as a judge, not as a sympathetic person in the film or in the movie of the interview. As for Joshua Steiner, he said his mistake was that he has written a diary or a memoir. Why should he have done that while he is having a security clearance or whatever? He should have done that later on. And he shouldn't have talked about this diary to anyone. This is number two. The guy Gotti, who lost his relation with Jennifer Lopez because he simply got irritated and he made the mistake of that his talk has speeded up or raced against his thoughts. The idea of the big year when David Frankel has chosen to do a movie that for him he was romantically involved in or emotionally involved with the movie, but the movie was a great failure. So when you are facing such a problem, what you should do is the following. You should take a deep breath and balance your decision making between two things, a fiery reaction and a cool reaction. Take another deep breath and choose and focus on the cool reaction. And remember, not to do is much better than doing. And that's why when Joshua Marx said his famous saying about speaking, he said, talk at your anger, and this will be the most regrettable speech that you have ever made. This is a very interesting book and a very interesting idea about from mistakes to meaning. And stay tuned to us in the world of books and the world of info.